This is the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast, episode number 7. Hello and welcome to the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast. I'm your host, Caryn McCann. The Christmas Movie Screenwriter is a podcast about writing, producing, and selling Christmas movies. I publish a transcript with every episode if you want to read something later. Just go to the website at www.christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. If you like the podcast and find it helpful, it would mean a lot to me if you could rate this podcast. You'd be helping spread the word about the podcast, which would encourage even more industry experts to come on as guests. So it's a win-win for everyone. Please leave a rating on Apple or wherever you get your podcast, or tweet this podcast to your friends. A quick few words about what I'm working on. Christmas is right around the corner, so I'm watching lots of Christmas movies. I'm also working on a new script. This is the DIY script I mentioned the last time. I am deciding between writing this as a Christmas caper, so very lighthearted and sweet, or make it a Christmas thriller, more exciting and high stakes. I realize that perhaps would limit my buyers, but I'm considering it. I'll let you know how it turns out. And now for the main segment. Today, I'm interviewing producer, writer, director Peter Sullivan. Here is the interview. Peter Sullivan was born in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and graduated from New York University Tisch School of Arts with a degree in film and television. After making the move to Los Angeles, he worked his way up the development ranks at Paramount, Artisan Television, and Hearst Entertainment. Since becoming vice president of the production company Hybrid LLC in 2007, Sullivan has co-produced over 100 films. In addition to producing and writing, Sullivan has directed 40 films, including Secret Obsession, which, with over 40 million viewers in its first 28 days, was one of the top 10 most viewed Netflix originals ever. And the romantic comedy Christmas Under Wraps, which remains the highest-rated program in Hallmark Channel history. In 2022, he directed the first original movie for Amazon's freebie platform, Love Accidentally, starring Brenda Song and Denise Richards. In addition to his film work, Sullivan has worked as an entertainment journalist for the website Latino Review and co-wrote the graphic novel Burning Man with prolific comic book author Stephen Stern, Zen Intergalactic Ninja. Severely hard of hearing since birth, Sullivan has recognized a need to provide a platform for filmmakers and artists with disabilities. Well, Peter, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I told the audience a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself and your business?
As you said, I've been doing this for some time, This year, I've done 5 films.
Wow.
So I'm just so it's been a very busy year, and as a company, a lot of what we do are Christmas movies. So I thought that it would be wonderful to come in and share some of that with you, and given the subject matter of your podcast, and I thought it would be a great place to share some of what we've done in the past, some of what we've got coming up, and my love for the genre, which actually began when I was in film school. One of my first student films was a Christmas movie.
Wow.
And I did not realize at the time that I was, typecasting myself. But the trend continues, and I've never looked back.
Well, what are, obviously this is a Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. What are some key elements or qualities that you look for in a Christmas screenplay that would motivate you to produce it?
What we look for really is something different, something interesting and unique conceptually. I'll get a lot of emails and queries from writers and other producers. Oh, I've got this project. It would be a great Lifetime or Hallmark movie. And then they proceed to pitch me a concept that not only have I seen on these platforms already, but that we've actually produced. We just pitched my own movie to me. So what I think the challenge, because there's so many movies, both past and present, you know, how do you come up with an interesting take? How do you come up with something different? How do you surprise viewers, give them a
Yeah,
little something
right.
extra, and not just, the tropes that rightfully so have literally become a Saturday Night Live
Yeah, literally,
parody.
literally. You're right.
And I know I'm responsible for a lot of those cliches myself, and I get a residual check whenever Saturday Night Live makes fun of them. But it really is. It's about how do we do something different and just present the holiday in an interesting way that I haven't seen 100 times.
That's great. That's very refreshing because you hear a lot of uh, talk about how you have to follow the Hallmark formula, and it's got to have, the girl in the big city goes home to the farm and meets the ex-boyfriend. So you're saying, is this new, or is this,
Well, this
have
is for us, but also, I mean, talking to executives, even they're always looking for new ways. I mean,
good?
they're not looking to remake, the same movie. I know that over the last couple of years, there's been creative turnover in both Hallmark and Lifetime, and I
Hmm.
think the word coming down is, we want to respect what we've done and what's been successful, but show us a new, something new, something different, something exciting, something that's going to get the audience's attention.
Well, I'm glad you said that. That is music to my ears.
Hmm.
Now, on that note, some critics say Christmas movies are formulaic. How
Hmm.
can and you sort of answered this question, but let me have
Hmm.
you expand on this. How can writers make their scripts stand out?
Well, I mean, first of all, and this is just general screenwriting, 101 is, when I taught screenwriting over at Culver City High School, one of the first things I told my students is you need to create a story that we haven't seen before. I mean, to say, okay, I want to write a story about an archaeologist who works for a university, and in his spare time he goes hunting for treasure, and I'm going to have him go look for a big treasure, from the Bible, and there's going to be some bad guys that want to get their hands on it. I mean, that's a great story, but I really wouldn't recommend anyone write that because it's already been done.
Yeah,
So the point
that's
of
right.
the
Yeah,
point of oh, well, this story is different because instead of going to a small town farm, she's going to a small town bakery. Like, that's not different.
that's right.
That really isn't different. And I'll give you an example. There was a film that was on last year. I forgot exactly what it was called, but it was a take on Three Men and a Baby. Set
Okay.
time with three of the sort of leading men in the Christmas genre, and that's something different.
Yes.
That's something we haven't seen before. It's like just to treat the Christmas genre as a game of Mad Libs and just insert different verbs here
Right.
and there. It's
Right.
not really, putting the effort that's required to really excite anybody.
As you mentioned Hallmark and Lifetime, they had a change of management recently.
Mhm.
Your fresh approach to having something fresh and new, is that adopted by your peers in the industry?
I mean, it's something that we hear. It's just, as we're pitching ideas and concepts, just generally is something that we're being told,
Good.
from a variety of sources. We want them different. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. So last year, my company produced four, I directed two films for the Ion Network. Now, I've been doing films for the Ion Network for a long time, and we've done our Prince romances and this kind of stuff. But what they were looking to do last year was, a different take on the Christmas genre. So I did two Christmas movies for Ion last year that was very different from the standard. There weren't the Prince falling in love or that kind of. Well, actually, one was, but I'll tell you how we managed to make it different.
Mhm.
One was this very sort of Agatha Christie style mystery where we had a group of characters in a house with a missing Christmas diamond, and
Oh, right, right. The Christmas Diamond.
yeah, the case of Christmas diamond. It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
it wasn't about murder or any of that, but it was definitely, I mean, we took the Christmas setting and the Christmas conventions and applied it to an Agatha Christie style detective story, and
Good.
then we've all seen every year there are two or three. I've done several myself of these sort of prince romance movies where a girl, an American girl gets swept off her feet and by a prince, and he's from some European country, and he's come to the United States for whatever reason, and he's gonna fall in love and take her back to his kingdom. And it's like we've seen that so many times. What if we did that story set against the backdrop of a criminal case? So we have our girl that was swept off her feet with an FBI agent working the case.
I love it.
And the prince bears a passing resemblance to the criminal that she's currently involved with, and and a twist on the prince and pauper. The prince and the criminal switch places and help her to solve the crime. So again, it's about how do you really not just replace a word here or there and call it fresh. It's how do you put all the ingredients in a big bag, shake it up, and dump out something completely different that we haven't seen before. And that was Iron thing last year. They were really making an effort to do something different, and that's what I love. I love doing Christmas movies that are unique, as well as the usual. But I feel like because there's so many films being done by so many networks,
right.
How do we stand out? What do we do different? Okay, we'll put Eddie Murphy in it and make it more fantastical, or we'll do an origin story about Santa Claus, or you're seeing these these streamers and networks really step outside the comfort zone and doing different types of Christmas movies, like for example the Three Men and a Baby idea that did actually quite well. I'll get the name for that for you. So
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
The FBI Royal Christmas, is that called a Royal Christmas Holiday?
No, that was called Prince and Pauper Christmas.
Oh, Prince and Pauper.
It's okay because obviously Prince and Pauper. It's okay. The movie was called Three Wise Men and a Baby. It was a Hallmark film.
That's right.
From 2022. And it starred Paul Campbell, Andrew Walker, and Tyler Hines, and it was their take on Three Men and a Baby.
No,
as a Christmas movie.
See,
and this is Hallmark. Again, trying to find to stand out. How do you stand out when there's 40 of these things being made a year?
170.
Or 170. It can't all be about the girl from the city going to feed the bakery. So
yeah. So how do you find scripts? Do you tend to hire WGA writers or non-union writers?
We tend to generate most of the ideas. I would say 99.9% of the ideas that we've done are generated in-house, and then we'll assign them to writers. And we have relationships with writers. So we're always interested in finding new voices. We do have a stable of writers that we've been working with for a long time, and that's part of how we've been able to keep a strong output, is because we have a family, and we have kind of a system in place where the producers will come up with a concept, and then we'll find which writer is best suited for this idea, and then proceed from there. And we have expanded a writing roster, but it's not something that we've been, we're not actively looking for new pitches ourselves, because we find the market is so target driven. The odds of finding a script out there that was written that just happens to hit all of the marks that we need to hit, it would be a needle in a haystack to find the one that just happened to conveniently hit them all.
Can you share what some of those marks are?
Well, for example, if a certain buyer is looking for something specific, but our films are not only designed for a specific, we're not doing films just for a network, we're doing films for the international market, we're doing films that have to sell on a streaming market. And so everyone has their own specific needs, and it's constantly changing too.
Right.
So, and I know I was doing, I was doing some online webinars on screenwriting, and one of the topics they wanted me to cover was, how to pitch to Hallmark and Netflix and Lifetime and that kind of stuff. And I said, well, that would be kind of that would be a false advertising, because the minute I reported that thing, it would all change. And so now I'm giving outdated information. I mean, this every phone call it changes.
That's
so there is no silver bullet, except to say the one thing you probably don't want to do is give them something that they already have, because if they've already produced it, and chances are they probably have 30 others just like it, and you're not going to stand out, and you're not going to get their attention, because they're going to say, well, we already have those films in development, which is a common reason why they pass, because like you said, 170 films, chances are, unless you're stepping outside the box, you're not going to think of something they haven't thought of.
Do you see that market as becoming oversaturated or still growing?
I think it's growing, but I do, as with anything, it's like there's only, how many Christmas movies could one possibly consume in a given time? So that's why, again, I think getting attention and standing out amidst all the noise is so important, because otherwise it's just white noise, and it's just something you turn on the TV and it plays in the background while you're baking or cooking or whatever you're doing, and it just becomes sort of background noise. Exactly. How do you stand out when there's 170 movies? And every streamer, that Fox Nation is now doing original Christmas movies. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised at this point that CNN hasn't announced a slate of original Christmas movies. Maybe they have. The point is, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
How do you stand out? How do you be different?
And not just production companies. I mean, HGTV, that's a bad example, but like Coca-Cola, I think, because they're putting their product in there.
And we've done that. And we've done that in the past with certain films. We've been involved with sponsors, and in several cases, found ways to integrate certain things, because you're right, it's also sponsor driven.
Right. So, what is your ideal budget for a Christmas TV movie?
Our movie typically fall within the anywhere between $1 to $2.5 million range in there. But again, with talking to writers, I don't want writers to think about budget. That's not something that a writer really should be thinking about. Because I find, and I'm guilty of this as well, when I've written my own material and sent it out, if you're writing with a budget in mind, or what you think about, and unless you're an experienced line producer, you don't know. I mean, you can guess, but as a writer, you don't know. You don't know what the deals are. And it's like, oh, well, I read the state had a tax credit, so I set my script there, so it should be a slam dunk. It's like, well, maybe the production company doesn't want to shoot a movie in that state. Maybe they're not interested in the tax credit. That's not a selling point. Writing for a budget is not a selling point. If it's a great concept, I'll find a way to make it. And I'd rather have a killer concept than a script that, is same old, but, quote, I could afford it. That's not a selling point for me.
So how do you finance your Christmas movies?
We do them independently. Our films are financed independently by our company. And, that also, allows us a certain degree of control and ownership over the films.
Does that include pre-sales?
We put together a package that, like I said, it sometimes includes pre-sales, but, sometimes we've done movies without pre-sales. And if we believe in an idea and a concept, if somebody's not hungry for it right this minute, doesn't mean they won't be hungry for it in 6 months. Right. But by the time they are hungry for it, it might be too late to start cooking. So sometimes you have to, make the meal in anticipation of what the hunger is going to be, not now, but 4 hours from now.
Right. Exactly.
So a lot of it is guesswork, but again, it's based on relationships and experience, and those aren't things that I want. Those aren't things that writers should be thinking about. Let us
Yeah.
worry about that. You
Good.
show me something interesting and different. I'll worry about when to put it in the oven.
There you go. Okay. I like that. I like that metaphor. So how do you market and monetize your Christmas movies? Do you utilize sales estimates to attract sales agents? And what strategies do you employ to recoup your investment?
Well, we have a sales representative who works with us, like I said. So we do, we have foreign sales as well as domestic, and we'll make license agreements with various networks, and when those license agreements expire, sometimes they'll renew, or we'll take it to another network.
Okay. And how important, now you kind of already answered this question, but maybe you could expand on this. How important is originality in Christmas TV movie scripts? And what advice would you give to screenwriters looking to put a unique spin on a well-loved holiday theme or trope?
Well, here's one thing I will say, because I know I've been encouraging people to go outside the box. There is such a thing as a little too far outside the box.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm not saying that I want, a very Star Wars Christmas.
Yeah.
That's
been done.
a little too far out the box.
That's already been done.
Christmas Comes to Alpha Centauri is probably not going to work for a lot of people. I mean, look, you have to stay within, the genre. I'll say that. And by genre, I mean, if you look at most Christmas movies, they fall into what would be traditionally referred to as kind of like the rom-com sphere. Sometimes drama, but it's usually it's either drama or romantic comedy. I would say, they're not science fiction. They're not, usually not, without maybe a fantastical element in the way of like a Christmas Carol or something. They're not Lord of the Rings. They're not Star Wars. They're not action movies. Typically, they fall into the romantic comedy and drama category. Now, that having been said, there are outliers. Like I said, Ion last year was expanding that, and they were doing these sort of crime mysteries type movies, but they were still very comedic.
Okay.
And in fact, Prince and Papa Christmas is probably one of the most comedic films I've ever directed. I mean, it had a lot of slapstick and gag humor with, mistaken identities, and, the elevator door would open, and one of, the prince would come in, and then the next elevator door would open, and the criminal would come out. I mean, it was that kind of,
Okay.
near misses and that kind of stuff. So it was very much based around physical humor. So we didn't stray too far from that. We weren't making Heat as a Christmas movie.
Right. Yes.
It still very much fell into the comedy. And even, Case of the Christmas Diamond, which was our sort of Agatha Christie mystery, we didn't do murder. It wasn't who killed the Santa Claus or whatever. It was a theft, so there was no body count.
Right.
Because again, it was about trying to keep it on the lighter side. There are outliers such as Lifetime, and I have one coming up this year. Lifetime Movie Network has what they call Sleigh Bells, SLAY Bells, which is a stunt. It's a programming stunt they do every year where they'll run these thrillers. However, of the thrillers, most of them are not specifically Christmas themed. Mine is. The one we did last year was. And again, that's one network. That's one done. So if you wanted to maximize the attention that your screenplay or idea would get, it's probably best not to aim for something that's very limiting like that, where there's only one network really doing that.
Is that network Lifetime?
It's Lifetime Movie Network. So it would be better. And it's not even Lifetime proper. It's Lifetime Movie Network, and there's only a handful of films. So again, if you're talking about trying to maximize your potential as a screenwriter, I would aim for the biggest market possible. So my recommendation would be not to go for the niche, the crime, or the mystery, or the thriller, but go for something in the comedy, romantic comedy space. And the reason I say that is, when it comes to genre tropes, romantic comedy, drama, this is a very wide, varied target that we're talking about. So, if you look at, a romantic comedy, on the one hand, it could be Notting Hill, on the other hand, it could be Tootsie, very different movies. So if you think of Christmas movies in that way, it's like there's a lot of space in between Notting Hill and Tootsie,
right.
or Pretty Woman, or other seminal romantic comedies over the years, Mr. Mom. I mean, these movies have nothing in common other than the fact of their very broad genre sense, Mrs. Doubtfire. So the idea is how do you present your story staying in that genre, but again, thinking about how varied those movies I just named are, that's a lot of creative potential to play with.
Right.
Without going outside, without saying, okay, we're going to do Star Wars Christmas.
Right. But there are outliers. For example, Silent Night, Fatal Night.
Yes.
That's
and like I said, so that was something that again was not, that was something that we developed internally because we had a relationship and we knew there was a need and we filled it. But if I'm a screenwriter writing a spec script and I wanted the best chance for my script to be made,
right,
that's not the Christmas movie that I would suggest you write.
Okay. Well, besides that advice, what advice would you give to your younger self about producing Christmas movies? Or anything.
I think really overall I'd say I had I think I'm pretty proud of what I've done. There's not a whole lot I would do differently. Because one of the things that I am most proud about is consistently breaking the mold, over the years. I mean, starting with the first Hallmark movie I ever directed, Christmas Under Wraps, yes, that has become the cliche, but back then it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were at the forefront of that, and so we kind of in a way that film and its imitators had a lot of influence on that, but back then it was new, it was different. And I did another movie for Lifetime that I still get a kick out of, called Dear Secret Santa, which I mean, talk about really outside the box. We were doing a Christmas movie about the theory of wormholes and time travel and alternate dimensions. We were doing Christmas movies about the multiverse before anyone knew what the multiverse was.
Wow.
This was 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago we were doing this movie. We were doing diversity and casting, long before it became an industry mandate. And I'm very proud of the films that we've done over the years, pushing the genre in different ways. I've done movies that were almost musicals, which is very unique and fun. And I've gone from a world where literally an executive said, we don't want songs in our movie, to doing a movie that was almost a musical. So I mean, I've seen this genre grow and expand. So and my advice to my younger self would be to really continue to challenge the genre and don't become so complacent that literally your script just become ad libs.
Exactly.
A blank from big city blank opens a blank in a small town called blank, and falls in love with the blue collar blank who helps her to overcome blank. I mean, I mean, that's yeah, that's not
We've
gonna
seen there.
fly.
We've been there, done that, and got the T-shirt.
Yeah, I got the exactly. In fact, I have. I actually went. It's so funny. I went on Etsy and I bought a sweatshirt with my own movie's catchphrase on it.
Which
And
is?
that's Garland for you. And I went to the screening, and everyone's like, "Oh man, you made that!" And I was like, "No, I bought that online. People are selling these things. Like we've created this industry, and this marketing and stuff, and even the producers themselves, it's like they're not even aware of the impact always that it has on the audience." And that's the thing. I really try to always keep in touch, whether we're talking on shows like this or what have you. I really always try to be involved with the audience and reach out to the audience and hear what they have to say. I read all the boards, I read all the messages and the posts and everything because I want to hear what people think of our work. And that's something else I do. I just, well, what can I do differently? And maybe tell my younger self, don't take the criticism so personally.
Right.
Because there are people out there that will say negative things, and I know there were several comments that came up after we started making films to Netflix because there's such a large market. There were a lot of good stuff, but there was also with the high number of positive comments, there was also a higher normal number of negative comments, and it was very it hurts when you read some of that stuff. And so I would tell the younger self, is just look, take it all with a grain of salt, every single learning experience, and learn what you can, and just kind of block out what you can't.
What's that catchphrase that you had on the sweatshirt?
That's Garland for you.
Oh, so that's Garland for you.
Catch for you. That was the catchphrase from the first Christmas Under Wraps. And so when we did the follow-up film a couple of years ago, it was like, how many times can we squeeze that phrase?
Right.
And a funny thing. One of the items I bought on Etsy with that slogan on it was a wall hanging, and I hung it in the movie on the set, and it's in the film, and I took a picture of it, and I sent it to the Etsy artist that created it. I said, "Hey, you know that thing I bought? Well, there it is, and now you're part of the world."
Wow.
That's
a selling point.
In the follow-up film.
I bet her sales just skyrocketed after that.
But because I love the fact that our films are so inspirational to people and motivate people, and there's so many people interested in it. Because for me, that I don't make movies for myself. I make movies for the audience, and I love it when it works, and we and we just make people happy. One of the greatest stories that I was told, I did a film, one of my first films that I directed. We had an actress in it who was also a comedian, and very much in the faith-based world. And she'd gotten a letter from a fan that said that movie almost saved her life. That she was kind of she was at the end, she was having a really hard time, and she was she felt like she was alone and all of that. When she saw that movie, it was such a motivating factor for her to just kind of put it all behind her and find the strength to move on. That to me was that made my year. I mean, that's all I could ever ask for from one of these films. It's just to touch one person,
right,
to change one life or make somebody's holiday just a little bit brighter.
Yeah, that's great. Now, this next question, I know you earlier said 99% of your scripts are from a circle of writers that you have, a roster of writers that you use again and again. But let me just ask anyway, what is the best way for screenwriters to connect with you and submit their ideas or scripts for that 1% opportunity?
Look, they can always email me, or message me on Instagram. However, You know, I've never gotten a query that's made it through production.
Okay, that's good
I
to
have
know.
to,
That's good to know.
because I have to get through. I've met writers that way that I've hired, and by that I mean I want to say there's probably been, you know, over the course of 20 years, you know, maybe three or four, you know, which, considering I get three or four queries a day, that's not a huge
Yeah,
margin.
yeah.
But it you know, it's hard because, again, like I said, our niche is so narrow, and what we're looking for at a given moment is so narrow. The odds of hitting that are very hard.
Right, right.
And I'm only one person, and we're a small company. I don't have tons of people that can read scripts and that sort of thing. So it's very, you know, it's very time consuming to
Of
do,
course.
and we don't have the infrastructure that's really set up to go through that haystack and find the needle. And it really is, it's, you know, the right place at the right time. And the one, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. There's a writer I met, and there was a project we ended up, we haven't produced it yet, but it was a project we were developing, not a Christmas movie, and it was set in the world of fur trapping,
Bird
and you
trapping.
know, and against like the Westwood expansion and that sort of thing. You know, kind of like if you remember the movie The Red Man with, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio. It was set very much in that kind of world.
Oh, okay.
And it was something we were working on and we were developing, and it was a true story we were pursuing, and we were looking at writers, and we were kind of, and out of the blue I get an email from a writer. It's like, hey, you know, I'm interested in, you know, here's my spec, and I'm you know, you know, would you be interested in taking a look at it? And it was about fur trapping,
Amazing.
and I was like, okay.
That's synergy.
And we actually did a couple projects together.
Wow.
None of which yet has been produced. Not for lack of trying,
Right.
we haven't gotten them through yet. But again, that's I mean, that's 1,000 to one shot. You know,
Exactly.
that email would just happen to hit when I was having a conversation about who the heck we're going to find knows anything about fur trapping,
Right. Right.
and this email just happens to pop up.
Well, you put it out there in the
That was
universe, and I think
sometimes, you know.
you never know.
And I
You,
apologize, and it's sad because as an aspiring writer, I know how hard it can be, and I wish I had better news, and I wish but I just,
it's
you
good to
know, I've worked at
be
companies,
realistic.
I've worked at companies before that you know, where as a development executive, employed a staff of readers who did nothing but read scripts and just, you know, read and cover and do script coverage and that sort of thing. You know, and I've worked for companies where I had more people doing script coverage than I have at my entire company. I mean, you know,
Whoa.
we're a small entity. We're not a big studio. We're not a, you know, you know, we're very much a small, you know, we're the film equivalent of that, you know, mom and pop store.
Mhm.
We're not corporate. You know, we don't have the corporate infrastructure. So that's just the truth.
I just thought of a question. I'm just
Mhm.
curious if you can answer this. You do you find that it's like the same writers are writing the same are writing Christmas scripts, or is there like a stage where a writer will sort of graduate to maybe higher budgeted movies or studio movies, or is it sort of like these writers just stick with it for their career?
You know, it varies. I mean, there's a writer that you know, we were working. I was working with her. You know, if we weren't her first produced script, we probably were up there. You know, we were one of her first produced movies for sure. And she just really liked the Christmas genre, and you know, was doing Christmas movies with us. And then she graduated to bigger network movies, but she's still doing Christmas movies.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've had other writers. We go back and forth. As a director, I go back and forth. As a writer myself, I go back and forth. You know,
Right, right, right.
I mean, you know, I think I remember I did a Christmas movie years ago for Lifetime, called All About Christmas Eve, with Haley Duff, and we wrapped the picture. And about a week later, I got a call saying we're going to start another film for Lifetime, and it was a horror film starring Cuba Gooding Jr. A week later.
Yeah.
So, I personally, I don't like to only do one type of film. I like their stuff. If you look at the films that I've done everything from, Christmas movies to non-Christmas romantic comedy to mystery, thriller, horror, sci-fi.
Amazing.
I've run the gamut. I've written action films myself as well as Christmas. To me, I value a good story above anything else.
Right.
And what attracts me as both a creative and a producer, just a good story. And the writers that we work with, they do go back and forth. So the films, Christmas movie, will be written. We'll do a Christmas movie written by somebody, and then that same writer will go on from there to do a thriller for us.
That's great.
I'll do both.
That's good. That's good. That's inspiring. It's inspiring. Mm-hmm. So to wrap up, would you like to share any links or social media details so our audience can keep up with what you're doing?
Absolutely. So you can always follow me on Instagram, and my Instagram is Peter Sullivan _director. And that's where I usually post up and coming material. And additionally, in addition to the movies that I've done, I am also this holiday season. I have something new that I've tried, and it's available now. I've adapted one of my Christmas movies, Case of the Christmas Diamond, into a novel.
Oh, right.
And that novel is now available. You can get it on BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, as an ebook or in print. And it's just because I love writing. I wanted to just try something different, keep it fresh.
Well, maybe your next adaptation will be a play. The Christmas Diamond, the Christmas movie, the Christmas Diamond play. Yeah, why not?
I will tell you this: the comments that we got after screening Silent Night, Fatal Night, which is my upcoming Lifetime Movie Network Christmas movie for this year, was hey, this would make a good play.
Excellent. But you never know. I like that. Okay. Well, Peter, thank you so much for your knowledge and your experience, and especially giving a clear-eyed view to the writers out there, because they need to hear this. And again, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
And now for my takeaways. Today I have 3. Number 1, executives are open to new ideas. Peter mentioned that executives at Hallmark and Lifetime are open to new ideas. You could take a typical Christmas movie and give it a fresh spin. For example, in Hybrid's movie, The Case of the Christmas Diamond, Peter took a Christmas idea and gave it an Agatha Christie mystery feel. The good news is more and more production companies are opening up to adding a unique spin to Christmas movies. Number 2, surprise the audience. There are so many Christmas movies, past and present, that it's hard for a writer or producer to get attention. The only way to get through the clutter is to stand out. How do you do that? You need to challenge yourself. Don't be complacent. Don't be that guy or gal who writes a fill-in-the-blank script. A blank from big city blank opens a blank in a small town called blank and falls in love with a blue-collared blank who helps her overcome her blank. Here's an example. A driven marketing executive from Chicago opens a holiday-themed pop-up shop in a small town called Snowfall Springs and falls in love with a carpenter who helps her overcome her fear of taking risks and embracing spontaneity. Yep, already seen it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So, I put a unique spin on Peter's formula. What do you think? A mermaid from big city Atlantis opens a taco stand in a small town called Angel Falls and falls in love with a unicorn who helps her overcome her fear of seashells. I think I like number 2 better. Anyway, number 3, reality check. Peter said in all his years, he's never produced a script from a query email. Now, I know that's hard to hear for writers, but he has worked with writers that perhaps queried him in the past, but we need to look at the hard numbers. In 20 years, he's only worked with 3 to 4 writers who have queried him, and he gets 3 to 4 queries a day. So getting into screenwriting, any genre, even Christmas movies, which seem to be unlimited. I mean, there's the 170 that were made last year. But despite that, you have to keep your eyes wide open. So don't get complacent and write fill-in-the-blank scripts. Now, more than ever, you need to think outside the box. And that just may be what you need to stand out in a crowded market. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And please spread the word on your socials so more folks can discover the podcast. The bigger the audience, the more experts we can attract to the show. It's win-win. And sign up to be notified of the launch of our membership website to connect writers, producers, sales agents, and distributors of heartwarming Christmas movies at www.christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. Thanks for listening. My name's Caryn McCann, and I'll see you on the next Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. Bye.